You're in a dark, damp cave on Okinawa. The year is 1945. The air is heavy, thick with the scent of wet earth, limestone, and an icy, clinging fear. Outside, the deafening roar of howitzers and the dry, ragged crack of M1 Garand rifles echo. Every vibration of the earth resonates with a low hum in your bones. You clutch your child tighter. They stopped crying long ago, and now only tremble silently, clinging to your clothes. Their silence is more terrifying than any scream. You're waiting for them. For decades, the state machinery hammered into your head who they are. Bearded demons, savages from the West, their poster faces contorted by eternal rage. You were shown drawings, long fangs, red eyes. They are not human. They are them. You were told they take no prisoners, that they will torture, rape, and kill, slowly, with pleasure. And it is better to meet a swift, clean death by your own hand than to fall into their bloodied grasp. You hear the scrape of boots on stone right at the cave's entrance. They are approaching. They are here. Your entire life, your entire system of beliefs, honed to a razor's edge, has prepared you for this moment, for the last desperate act of loyalty to the Emperor suicide. In your hand lies a grenade, the army's final gift. Cold-ribbed metal, your only salvation from dishonor. You are ready. But what if I told you that this monolithic wall of propaganda built over years would not crumble from a high-explosive bomb? What if the most powerful psychological weapon in this battle is not steel and gunpowder, but something that can be felt on the tongue, something that bypasses consciousness and strikes directly at the most ancient part of the brain, the center responsible for trust, for safety, for pleasure, something that can be tasted? This is the story of how one chocolate bar changed the course of the bloody Battle of Okinawa. By the end of this narrative, you will understand how one American soldier, whose eyes had seen too many deaths, with a bar of unappetizing Hershey's Ration D army chocolate in hand, won the battle for hearts and minds. The very battle that generals with their multi-thousand armies, maps, and elaborate strategies were losing. You will see how this simple gesture launched a viral wave of trust that spread from cave to cave faster than the orders of Japanese officers. This is a story of how propaganda, hardened in the fire of war, melted from the warmth of a simple piece of chocolate. To understand how this steel melts, one must first understand how it was forged. One must descend deeper, to where logic is powerless and myth is stronger than life. A Japanese officer enters the depths of the cave. His face is carved from stone. There is no fear or pity on it, for he himself is a cog in this machine, and he believes in it until his last breath. His voice, cold and hard as the steel of his sword, echoes off the damp walls. He does not ask. He repeats the order, an order that has become a national mantra, a hymn of death. Capture is indelible shame. Death is the highest honor, the only path, Gyokusai. Gyokusai, translated as shattered jade. A poetic image of beautiful death in the name of the emperor. But do not let the beautiful words deceive you. This is not just propaganda. This is a total, ideological reprogramming that changes the very operating system of reality. It works like a viral meme, transmitted not through the internet, but through neighbors' whispers, through school textbooks, through a father's stern gaze. A meme that overwrites basic instincts, the instinct for self-preservation, the maternal instinct. In this new reality, Americans are not just enemies. They are them, faceless, dehumanized demons, whose mere touch defiles the very soil of Japan. This system worked flawlessly. It stripped the enemy of a human face, and it stripped you of the right to choose. It left no other scenario for the nearly 150,000 civilians on Okinawa but death. And this was not just an abstract call, it was a clear, step-by-step instruction for action, reinforced by the authority of the Imperial Army. Japanese military personnel did not just persuade, they deliberately distributed hand grenades to civilians. Type 97, one per family. Here it is. You feel its cold, ribbed metal, an unpleasant weight in your palm. This is not just a weapon, it is a ticket to eternal glory. It is the last sacrament, the key to escaping shame. The ritual was explained to you how to kill your children first and then yourself, quickly, without hesitation, so as not to be captured by the enemy, so as not to dishonor the great nation. This ideology seemed absolutely airtight, a perfect psychological prison without bars built from within, a wall constructed of fear, duty, and ancient honor. impenetrable. Information from outside does not penetrate. Doubts are punished by death or ostracism, which is sometimes worse. In this closed system of coordinates, there is only one way out, and it leads through death. But what if the demon you are waiting for with this grenade in your hand offers you not a weapon that brings death, but food that promises life? A silhouette emerges from the darkness of the cave. At first, just a dark blob that blocks the saving light. Then it takes shape, and this shape is terrifyingly familiar to you. He is enormous, taller and wider than any man you have ever seen. His shoulders barely fit through the narrow cave opening. His face is covered in a thick, matted beard concealing his features. Just like in those drawings, in his hands, a long black rifle, the barrel of which glints dully in the light. It is him, the demon descended from propaganda leaflets, materialized from your worst nightmares. You clutch your child tighter, feeling their hot breath on your neck, and squeeze your eyes shut. You have prepared for this. Your whole life has been preparation. You are waiting for the end. Blood pounds in your ears, drowning out the roar of the battle outside. The world has narrowed to this moment. You await the blow of a rifle butt, a shot, a death scream. Yours or your child's, it no longer matters. But seconds pass and nothing happens. Instead of a scream, you hear the quiet rustle of dense, coarse fabric. A sound that does not fit the script of violence. You open your eyes. The soldier does not raise his weapon. He slowly, almost clumsily bends down, dropping to one knee so that your eyes are on the same level, so as not to tower over you, to break the hierarchy of predator and prey. Remember this moment. This is not command. It is not part of military tactics, codified in regulations. It is the personal, spontaneous initiative of one man who is tired of seeing death. He reaches into his canvas duffel bag. You tense again, but he pulls out neither a knife nor a grenade. He takes out something dark wrapped in wax paper, a bar of Army Ration D, and he extends it to you with his large, calloused, dirty hand, the hand of a killer. But it is not clenched into a fist, isul. It is open, and this is where reality begins to break. Because the story of this chocolate is a cruel irony, documented in Hershey's company archives. This chocolate, Ration D, was specially developed by Colonel Paul Logan and Milton Hershey to be unpalatable. You heard that right. Its main purpose was not to be liked. It was hard as a brick, so it couldn't be bitten off, only slowly gnawed. With a high oat flour content to slow digestion. It was bitter. Its official description read, "Tastes a little better than a boiled potato." Its formula was designed so that it would withstand tropical heat and not melt, and most importantly, so that soldiers would not eat it casually out of boredom, so that they would only eat it as a last resort, as emergency caloric fuel. Of the more than 3 billion bars produced by the end of the war, not one was intended for pleasure. It was anti-chocolate, fuel disguised as a treat. That is why this soldier's gesture was even more valuable. It was stronger than any propaganda. He was not sharing an excess, not a trophy candy. He was sharing his emergency supply, his last chance for survival. He was giving you calories that could save his own life in a few hours. And you, whose fingers still clench the cold grenade, take this heavy, dense bar with your other hand, trembling and disobedient. The warmth of his hand briefly touches yours. In that very moment, the ideology, which seemed an unbreakable granite wall, shows its first, barely noticeable hairline crack. The demon offered you not a quick death, but a bitter life. But was this a random act of kindness by one soldier? Or was there something more behind it? Your fingers, which had just been clutching the grenade, with difficulty break off a tiny hard piece. You put it into your child's mouth, a quiet crunch, and the child falls silent. They begin to chew instinctively. A short circuit occurs in your mind, a powerful cognitive dissonance. This is when two incompatible files collide and the system freezes. File number 1, the demon killer from the officer's orders. File number 2, the stranger who is feeding your hungry child. Which one is real? This is how ideology is hacked. Propaganda always creates an abstract, generalized image of the enemy, a faceless threat. But a concrete physical experience, this bitter taste on the tongue, this sound of your child chewing, bypasses all mental firewalls. It does not speak to your reason, which has learned the orders. It speaks directly to your ancient brain, to the part of it responsible for survival, and for the most important instinct of all, to protect offspring at all costs. This gesture did not just show that Americans were also human, it did something far more important, something revolutionary. It directly refuted the very essence of the Gyokusai order. Look, on one side of the scales, the phantom abstract honor after death. This is promised to you by an officer who himself hides deep in the cave. On the other, 600 calories of dense, tangible, bitter life. This is offered to you by the demon who looks you in the eye. One act of the simplest empathy proved stronger than decades of state machinery. It replaced the abstraction of death with the tangible concreteness of life. This was not just a crack in the wall of propaganda. This was the first stone knocked out of the base of the dam, and behind it a flood is about to rush forth that nothing can stop. And that flood came. The news began to spread, not through radio or leaflets that no one read, but in the oldest and most reliable way, whispers in the dark, with broken hot breaths, from one damp cave to another, from one trembling family to another. They don't kill, they don't torture, they don't rape, they give food, they feed children chocolate. One mother's story ceased to be just a story. It became a viral meme of survival, a legend, a new instruction for action that cancelled the old one. It was a domino effect, triggered by the principle of social proof. Each family that dared to emerge from a cave with raised hands became living, breathing proof for dozens of others. Their neighbours, hiding in nearby rocks, saw them, alive, unharmed, wandering in the sun. This simple visual fact was more powerful than any ideological indoctrination hammered into their heads for decades. Fear slowly began to retreat before a fragile yet tangible hope, and this led to an event that US Army archival reports and historians consider unprecedented. For the first time in modern Japanese history, the civilian population began to surrender en masse to the enemy. The age-old cultural code steeped in the philosophy of bushido, which placed death above the shame of capture, was broken, not by generals, not by politicians. It was broken by rumours of kindness and a bar of bitter, unpleasurable chocolate. Civilians chose life. But how did those still encased in the armour of duty and honourable death react to this betrayal? How did the Japanese soldiers react? The answer is shocking. Precisely because the ideology was broken for civilians, it became even stronger for the military. A simple act of kindness divided them forever. Now imagine yourself in his place, in the place of a Japanese soldier. You are sitting in a half-ruined pillbox smelling of damp earth and gunpowder smoke, clutching the cold metal of an Arisaka rifle. You know the order, Gyokusai, honourable death for all. No one must surrender to the demons. This order is not just words, it's a hum in your skull, a sacred vibration. And suddenly, through a narrow embrasure, you see them. Not Americans, your own people. A group of civilians, women and old people with children in their arms, slowly like ghosts emerging from the cave. They are not coming to you for protection. They are going to the enemy. The order in your head screams, tearing your eardrums, "Stop them, this is shame." But your eyes see something else. They see the emaciated, dust-covered face of a mother clutching her child whose eyes are empty from hunger. She is not seeking shame, she is seeking water, she is seeking life. At this moment, the ideology hammered in by years of drilling engages in a physical struggle with what you are seeing right now, and you do not know who the real enemy is, the bearded giant with the automatic rifle, or the order that demands you kill this hope. For the Japanese command, such a choice was unambiguous and devoid of any sentimentality. Surrendered civilians were not saved souls, but traitors who desecrated the very essence of the national idea, kokutai. In their eyes, choosing life instead of honourable death was an act of cowardice that cast an indelible shadow on the entire nation. Because of this, Okinawans found themselves in an unthinkable tactical trap. On one side, the Americans, whom they were told to fear like fire. On the other, their own army which, according to archival data, had distributed Type 99 grenades to tens of thousands of civilians for mass suicide, and which now saw the survivors as despicable renegades. They were punished for attempting to survive, and often punished with death, as recorded in numerous testimonies. They were caught between the hammer of propaganda and the anvil of the military code, where any choice led to demise. And here is the main chilling paradox. Japanese soldiers, bound by the iron chains of the Bushido Code of Honor, continued to commit mass suicides. They threw themselves into hopeless banzai attacks on tanks. They jumped from the cliffs of Cape Mabuni. For them, ideology was stronger than the instinct for self-preservation. But the civilian population, raised on the very same ideology, broke from one simple sensory gesture, from one chocolate bar whose bittersweet taste on the tongue instantly negated years of abstract teachings. It turns out that propaganda created an ideal soldier, ready to die on command, transforming him into a function. But it proved utterly powerless against the common person who was offered not an honourable death in the name of the emperor, but an ordinary, sweet, tangible life. The Battle of Okinawa, it turned out, was fought on two fronts, in two different dimensions. One was physical, for the scraps of scorched, blood-soaked land. The other was ideological, invisible, for the minds and souls of hundreds of thousands of people trapped in caves. And on the second front, victory was won by the most unexpected combatant, whose effectiveness surpassed any weapon. It was not cast from steel in factories in Osaka. It was moulded from cocoa beans in a factory in Pennsylvania. Let's transport ourselves thousands of miles away. Pennsylvania 45, a huge humming Hershey's factory. The air is thick, permeated with the heavy, pungent aroma of cocoa. Conveyors rumble rhythmically. Thousands of workers in white coats package millions of identical, hard, bitter chocolate bars. Ration D, a strategic product, designed to taste no better than boiled potatoes. And now a sharp cinematic cutback to Okinawa. That same bar, having travelled halfway around the world in a ship's hold. It is in the calloused, dirt and sweat-covered hand of a young American infantryman. He extends it to a little girl who looks at him with eyes full of animal terror. One conveyor created millions of caloric rations. The other, the conveyor of propaganda, created millions of units of pure fear. And at this moment, at this point in space, they collided. The scale of this phenomenon is astounding. By the end of World War II, Hershey's, according to its own archives, produced over 3 billion military chocolate bars. This was not a dessert. It was a tactical resource commissioned by the Colonel Paul Logan for one purpose, to give a soldier 600 calories so he could continue fighting even if other food was unavailable. But on Okinawa, this resource acquired an entirely different, unintended purpose. Chocolate, created to sustain soldiers' lives, became a tool for saving civilians' lives. It transformed from fuel for war into an instrument for peace. Each bar, each waxed paper wrapper, became a small non-aggression pact, understood without a translator, in the universal language of hunger and empathy. However, this tactic had its clear limits. The same chocolate that so effectively broke the will of the civilian population, causing a cascading effect of trust, had almost no effect on Japanese soldiers. They saw it only as an enemy trick, another manifestation of their cunning and often returned fire. This proves a crucial point. Military indoctrination and civilian propaganda are psychological constructs of different strengths. A soldier is systematically prepared to die for an idea. His personality is reprogrammed according to regulations. A civilian is merely taught to live by its rules. And when these rules clash with the fundamental reality of survival, with the instinct to protect one's child, they crumble much faster than an oath sealed with blood. No, chocolate did not win the war. Bullets, shells, and flamethrowers did their monstrous work. But it helped win what comes after war, peace. It became the first brick removed from the wall of hatred that had been built for decades. It initiated a process that helped avoid an even greater number of civilian casualties, whose number had already reached a shocking 150,000. Now that all of the pieces of this mosaic are assembled, let's ask the main question. What lesson can we draw from this incredible story? The lesson is perfectly clear and adheres to the laws of psychology. First, total propaganda creates an abstract, faceless monster. The image of the American demon is powerful precisely because it lacks concrete features. It allows your imagination to paint the most terrifying pictures. Then, at the moment of first contact, what psychologists call a schema collapse occurs. Imagine your brain is a filing cabinet. There is a folder labelled Demon Killer, and suddenly you are presented with a fact that doesn't fit into this folder, a chocolate bar. The system freezes, and in that very moment, humanity triumphs over ideology, because ideology speaks to your mind about abstract things like honour and nation. But a simple gesture of kindness speaks directly to your ancient brain, to those neural circuits that are responsible for survival and caring for children. Against this, all propaganda is powerless. Now imagine that Okinawan mother with her child. Several months have passed. The roar of battle has long since ceased. They are in a refugee camp. Around them are thousands of others who were saved. There is enough food now. That chocolate was eaten that same day in a few frantic, greedy minutes. It is gone, but the memory of the gesture that restored their faith in humanity remains forever, like a tangible sensory recollection. She can still feel the rough wrapper in her trembling fingers, the unexpected weight of the bar, its bitter smell that overpowered the scent of death. This gesture didn't just save their lives. It proved that their entire past world was a lie, and that even in the midst of hell, one could meet not a demon, but simply another tired human being. And this, perhaps, is the main lesson of Okinawa. It turns out that the most effective psychological weapon is not what makes the enemy fear you, not the loudest threats or the most terrifying images. The most powerful weapon is what activates so-called mirror neurons in the opponent's brain. This is the part of your brain that makes you feel what another feels. It makes you see in them not an enemy, but yourself. To see not a soldier of the enemy army, but a father, a son, a brother. A person who can also show kindness or weariness. This act of recognition, this non-verbal confirmation of shared humanity, destroys hatred at its very root. At a biochemical level. In closing, we want to ask you a question. What do you think is capable of breaking down the wall of propaganda and distrust faster today? An irrefutable ironclad fact backed by all evidence and presented as an analytical report? Or one unexpected, sincere act of human kindness captured on a phone camera? What is stronger, truth for the mind or kindness for the heart? What reaches its target faster? Logic aimed at your reason, or empathy striking directly at the center of emotions? Please share your thoughts in the comments.